Long Drong, who, as his name suggests, was a rather tall dwarf and claimed a dubious line of descent from Drong the Hard, legendary dwarf ancestor known from many sagas, who began his career as a dwarf seafarer in Barak Var. He worked his way up from cabin dwarf to captain of the dwarven trading ship, the Barrel of Ale, which brought fine dwarf brews by the sea route to Faroe colonies. That was until one terrible voyage around the coast of Sartosa. A storm blew up, the worst for 100 years, and the ship foundered on treacherous rocks. Although the crew were washed up on shore, the entire cargo of rare dwarven ales was lost. This disaster was something no dwarf could bear, and no self-respecting dwarf captain would wish to survive. Long Drong knew his career as a dwarf trader was over. He resolved to become a slayer on the high seas, and to seek a heroic end worthy of a saga. His crew, who were just as shamed by the loss of the cargo as their captain, followed his example and swore upon their ancestors to lead a life of roving sea slayers until a worthy death ended their shame and redeemed them in legend. Having thus sworn, Long Drong, now known as Long Drong Slayer, trekked inland to his destiny, which was to become the most notorious pirate to ever lurk on Sartosa. His first act was to storm the stronghold of the dreaded pirate Capitino Sissoko and capture his ship and treasure stash. With the latter, Long Drong hired dwarf craftsmen to rebuild the flimsy vessel into something a dwarf could be proud of, not sparing the iron. He also hired dwarf smiths to forge cannons for the vessel, which Long Drong named the Fair Frigga, after a famous dwarf maiden of Barak Var, rumoured to be very beautiful. A figurehead representing her was carved by the crew. Unfortunately, neither Long Drong nor any of his crew had ever seen a real-life dwarf maiden, so they had to rely on their imagination and hearsay. The result, parts of which were shod in brass, made an awesome ram on the prow of the ship. The prisoners, now chained in Long Drong's dungeons, were freed in return for telling him all they knew about buried treasure and handing over any maps that they had. Long Drong learned that the key to success was often the possession of a pay chest full of gold with which to hire a mercenary army and hold it together under your command. Many such pay chests had been lost in battles, and there were mercenary generals willing to pay handsomely for their return, even double the value of anything in the chest, or a great fortune for the empty chest alone. This was because recovery of a lost pay chest is a matter of pride amongst mercenary generals, who regard such chests in the same way other races do their army standards. So, Long Drong let it be known that, being a seafaring dwarf, he would seek out and rescue a lost pay chest wherever it may be in the known world, and return it to its rightful owner. All he asked was to keep any treasure that he might find in it, plus a reward in gold equal to as much as the chest would hold. By the standards of mercenary generals, this was but a small price to pay for the restoration of honor and respect, and soon offers to hire his services came flowing in by swift messengers. Thus the fair Frigga voyaged to many distant lands, Araby, Austria, Albion, and many uncharted islands, and brought back various pay chests which may or may not have been genuine. In doing so, Long Drong raided the treasured hoards of many notorious pirates and corsairs, and made countless enemies determined to get their revenge on him. The price was on his head. Everyone sought to accomplish his doom. What more could a seafaring slayer ask for? His only friends turned out to be those mercenary generals for whom he had restored honor, and these soon began to hire Long Drong and his pirate crew to fight as a regiment in their armies. Their task, needless to say, was to seek out and capture the enemy pay chest on the battlefield. Only reckless dwarf slayer seeking a heroic end would take on or succeed in such a task, and as yet, Drong has still not met his doom.